The fortress shook again as another plasma blast hit the outer wall. Captain Timan Kang gripped the metal railing and watched the eastern defense tower collapse into rubble. Smoke filled the air, and the smell of burning metal mixed with dust. His soldiers were tired. They had been fighting for 72 hours straight without rest. "Captain, the north wall just fell," Sergeant Hanna said through the radio. Her voice was calm, but Timan could hear the exhaustion behind it. "We lost contact with the artillery team." Timan looked at the tactical display on his wrist. Red marks showed where human defenses had failed. There were too many red marks now. The Krathian forces had surrounded the fortress completely. Their ships hung in the sky like dark metal clouds, firing down on anything that moved. "How many soldiers do we have left?" Timan asked. 212, sir," Corporal Minho Park answered from the communications station. "Most are wounded. Medical supplies ran out this morning." Timan closed his eyes for a moment. When they had started defending Fortress Yamato 3 days ago, they had 2,000 soldiers. Now only 200 remained. The Krathians had 10 times more troops, better weapons, and complete control of the air. By every military rule in the galaxy, this battle was already over. The radio crackled to life with a new voice. It spoke in the common galactic language, with the harsh clicking sounds that marked Krathian speech. "Human defenders, this is Commander Velther of the Krathian Empire. Your general is dead. Your defenses have fallen. By galactic warfare conventions, this battle is concluded. Lay down your weapons and prepare for prisoner processing. You have 1 hour to comply." Timan walked through the broken corridors of the fortress. His boots crunched on broken glass and debris. He passed soldiers sitting against walls, their faces covered in dirt and dried blood. Some were bandaging their own wounds. Others stared at nothing, too tired to move Dodd in the medical bay. Lieutenant Neri Cho was working on a soldier with a burned arm. She had no proper medicine left, only water and torn cloth for bandages. When she saw Timan, she stood up and saluted, even though her hands were shaking from exhaustion. "How many can still fight?" Timan asked quietly. "Fight?" Nari looked around at the wounded soldiers filling every space in the medical bay. "Sir, half of our people can barely walk. We have no medicine, no food, and our water supply is damaged." "That's not what I asked, Lieutenant." Nari met his eyes. She understood what he was really asking. "About 150 could hold a weapon if they had to, sir. But they shouldn't have to. The battle is over." Timan nodded slowly and continued his walk through the fortress. In the armory, Sergeant Hanna was counting what remained of their ammunition. She looked up when Timan entered. "We have enough bullets for maybe 2 more hours of fighting," she said. 3 magazines per soldier, some grenades, and 1 plasma cannon with limited charge. "The Krathians are offering surrender terms," Timan said. Hanna stopped counting and looked at him carefully. "And standard prisoner protocol? They'll process us, hold us until the war ends, then release us. If they follow the rules," Hanna added. "The Krathians don't have a good record with prisoners." Timan picked up an empty rifle magazine and turned it over in his hands. "No, they don't. The command center was mostly destroyed. Only 1 screen still worked, showing a message from Earth Military Command." Minho played it for Timan. A general's face appeared, looking tired and sad. "To all forces on Bellum 7, the defense of the planet has failed. All remaining units are ordered to accept surrender terms and await prisoner exchange. Do not engage in further combat. This is a direct order. Protect your soldiers' lives. The fight for Bellum 7 is over." Timan stared at the screen for a long time after the message ended. The fight was over. Earth Command said so. The Krathians said so. Every military rule in the galaxy said so. When your defenses fall, your supplies run out, and your commanding officers die, the battle ends. That was how war worked in the civilized galaxy, but Timan thought about something his grandfather had told him. His grandfather had been a soldier too, in the old wars on Earth before humans went to space. "The enemy can defeat your army," his grandfather had said, "but only you can decide when you've lost." Timan called together his remaining officers. Hana, Nari, Minho, and a few others gathered in what was left of the command center. They all looked at him, waiting for the order to surrender. "The Krathians think the battle is over," Teeman said. "Earth Command thinks it's over." "Maybe they're right. By their rules, we've lost." "But?" Hannah asked, because she knew Teeman well enough to hear the word he hadn't said yet. "But we're not fighting by their rules anymore," Teeman said. He pulled up a file on the broken computer system. "Protocol Viper, it's a warfare doctrine that Earth Command created but never approved for use. Guerrilla tactics, unconventional warfare, psychological operations. It was considered too brutal for civilized combat." Nari shook her head. "Captain, our people are exhausted. They need rest, medicine, food." They'll get all of that if we surrender," Teeman agreed. "The Krathians will process us as prisoners. Some of us will probably survive until the war ends." "Maybe most of us. Then why are you considering this?" Minho asked. Teeman looked at each of them. "Because the Krathians came to our planet. They bombed our cities. They killed our people. And now they want us to politely line up and accept that they won. I'm asking you, as your officer and your friend, do we accept that?" The room was silent for a long moment. Then Hannah smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "I still have enough explosives to make their victory very uncomfortable." Minho nodded. "The tunnel system under the fortress is still intact." "They don't know about all of it?" Nari sighed. "I'll need to talk to the wounded. Some of them can't fight anymore. They deserve the choice." "Everyone gets a choice," Teeman said. "Anyone who wants to surrender can do so. No judgment, no shame. This isn't a suicide mission. It's just a refusal to quit." Over the next hour, Teeman spoke to his soldiers. He told them the truth. The battle was over by every rule that mattered. Surrender was the smart choice, the safe choice, the choice that would save lives. But there was another choice, and he was taking it. When the Krathian deadline passed, 198 soldiers stood with Teeman. 14 had chosen to surrender, and he personally escorted them to the fortress entrance where Krathian troops waited. He saluted each one as they left. Then he returned to his remaining soldiers and destroyed the communication equipment that connected them to Earth Command. They were on their own now. "The battle is over," Teeman told his troops. "The Krathians won. But winning a battle and holding what you won are two different things. They think we're done fighting. Let's show them what happens when humans refuse to yield." In the darkness beneath the fortress, 198 soldiers disappeared into the tunnels, taking their weapons with them. Above ground, Krathian forces entered the empty fortress, confused and angry. The humans were supposed to be there, defeated and ready to surrender. Instead, they found only silence and shadows. Commander Velther stood in the ruins and realized he had made a terrible mistake. The battle was over, yes. But the war with these strange, stubborn humans had only just begun. 2 days had passed since the Krathians entered the empty fortress. Commander Velther stood in what used to be the human command center and tried to understand what had happened. His soldiers had searched every room, every corridor, every storage space. The humans were gone. "They must have evacuated during the final assault," one of his officers suggested. Velther shook his head. "We had every exit covered. Our sensors showed no movement. They were here when we gave the surrender deadline. Where did they go?" What Velther didn't know was that the humans hadn't gone far. Below the fortress, an entire network of maintenance tunnels stretched for kilometers in every direction. These tunnels were narrow, dark, and not shown on any official maps. The humans knew about them because they had helped build the fortress years ago. Corporal Doyon Lee had worked as a construction engineer before the war. He knew every pipe, every shaft, every hidden passage in the fortress. Now he led groups of soldiers through the darkness, showing them how to move silently through spaces the Krathians didn't even know existed. The main tunnel connects to the old industrial sector 3 kilometers east, Doyon explained to Captain Teeman. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, showing rusted pipes and concrete walls. From there, we can access the jungle zone and the abandoned mining facilities. Tiemann studied the hand-drawn map Doyon had created. Can we move supplies through here? Small amounts, yes. But the real advantage is movement. The Krathians think they control the surface. They don't know we can move under their feet. Above ground, Krathian soldiers were setting up their occupation. They built command posts, established patrol routes, and began preparing the fortress for their permanent use. The war was over, after all. Bellum 7 was now Krathian territory. They just needed to find the few remaining humans and process them as prisoners. That's when the disappearances started. The first patrol went missing on the second night. 6 Krathian soldiers were doing a routine check of the fortress perimeter. They reported nothing unusual. Then their communication signals went dead. When other troops arrived to investigate, they found only the soldiers' weapons lying on the ground. No bodies, no blood. No signs of struggle. Maybe they deserted, an officer suggested. Krathian soldiers don't desert, Velther said angrily. But he was worried. 6 trained warriors didn't just vanish. The next night, another patrol disappeared. This time, 8 soldiers. Again, only their weapons remained, arranged in a neat circle as if placed there deliberately. Veltho doubled the patrols and ordered soldiers to move in larger groups. In the tunnels, Sergeant Hannah smiled as she checked her equipment. The ambush had worked perfectly. The Krathians walked in predictable patterns, following the standard military procedures. That made them easy targets for soldiers who weren't following any rules at all. How did we move them? Private Jeho-Yoon asked. He was young, barely 20, but he had proven to be an excellent shot with a rifle. Old mining carts on rails, Hannah explained. Doyon found them in the abandoned sections. We knocked them out with gas grenades, load them into carts, and roll them deep into the sealed tunnels. By the time they wake up, we're long gone. Why not just kill them? Jeho asked. Hannah looked at the young soldier seriously. Because we're not trying to commit murder. We're trying to make them afraid. A dead soldier is a statistic. A missing soldier is a mystery. Mysteries are scarier. She was right. Fear was spreading through the Krathian occupation forces. Soldiers started refusing to patrol at night. They moved in groups of 20 or more, weapons ready, jumping at every sound. The fortress that should have been their victory now felt like a trap. Sergeant Sora Beek had a different mission. While Hannah's team made Krathians disappear, Sora studied them. Before the war, she had been an anthropologist studying alien cultures. Now she used that knowledge for warfare. She had managed to steal a Krathian uniform from one of the captured soldiers. The armor was too big for her, but in the darkness, from a distance, she looked like one of them. She walked through the Krathian camp at night, listening to their conversations, watching their routines. What she learned was valuable. The Krathians were a warrior culture, proud and honorable. They followed strict rules of combat. When a battle ended, both sides accepted the result and moved on. The concept of guerrilla warfare was alien to them. They literally didn't have words in their language for insurgent or partisan fighter. They think war is like a sport, Sora reported to Tiemann in their hidden command post deep in the tunnels. With rules and a clear ending, they can't understand why we're still fighting. That's their weakness, Tiemann said. They defeated our army, so they think they defeated us. They're not ready for a different kind of fight. Minho had been working on the captured Krathian communication equipment. He was good with electronics, and the alien technology wasn't that different from human systems. After 3 days of work, he managed to break their encryption. I'm in, he announced. I can hear their communications, and with a bit more work, I can send false messages on their channels. This opened new possibilities. Tiemann's soldiers began to use Krathian communication protocols to confuse their patrols, sending units to empty locations or reporting fake threats. The Krathians started chasing ghosts, wasting resources on problems that didn't exist. The psychological pressure worked. Krathian soldiers became paranoid. They saw threats everywhere. When the wind moved a piece of debris, they opened fire. When shadows shifted in the darkness, they called for backup. Their discipline began to crack. Commander Velther requested reinforcements from his superiors. He reported that the human resistance was more organized than expected. What he didn't Admit was that he had no idea how many humans he was actually fighting. It could be thousands hidden in the jungle, or it could be the small group that had refused to surrender. He couldn't tell the difference. His superiors sent another 200 soldiers. Velther deployed them carefully, but it didn't help. The disappearances continued. More patrols went missing. Equipment began to malfunction mysteriously. Doyen's engineering teams were sneaking into Krathian camps at night, sabotaging vehicles and weapon systems in ways that wouldn't be discovered until they were needed. One night, the Krathians set a trap. They sent out a small patrol as bait, with a larger force hidden nearby. When the patrol was attacked, the hidden forces would spring their trap and finally capture some of these ghost soldiers, but Minho had been listening to their communications. He heard them planning the trap. Timon decided to spring it anyway, but on his terms, the small Krathian patrol walked nervously through the ruins. They knew they were bait, but that didn't make it less frightening. Suddenly, sleeping gas grenades landed among them. As they fell unconscious, the hidden Krathian forces rushed forward. They found the patrol sleeping peacefully, and with them, a recorded message playing on a human device. It was Captain Timon's voice, speaking in perfect Krathian language. Your trap was clever, but you're hunting enemies who write the rulebook as we go. Sleep well, Commander Velther. We'll visit your camp soon. The message was psychological warfare at its finest. It told the Krathians that humans were listening to their communications, speaking their language, and always one step ahead. More importantly, it showed that the humans could have killed the patrol but chose not to. That restraint was somehow more terrifying than violence. Velther listened to the recording and felt something he hadn't felt in his 30 years as a warrior. Fear. Not fear of death in battle, which was honorable, but fear of an enemy he couldn't understand, couldn't predict, and couldn't defeat with conventional tactics. He sent another message to his superiors. The humans on Bellum 7 have not surrendered. They are conducting organized resistance. Request permission to deploy additional forces. The response was harsh. The battle for Bellum 7 ended 4 days ago. You reported victory. Now you report you need more troops to fight an already defeated enemy. Explain this failure. Velther had no good explanation. How could he tell his superiors that 200 humans were making fools of his 1,000-soldier occupation force? How could he admit that his troops were terrified of shadows and empty? Corridors? In the tunnels below, Timon gathered his soldiers. They were still tired, still hungry, still wounded. But they were also winning in a way that didn't show on any tactical map. They were proving that the battle wasn't over just because someone said it was. They have the fortress, Timon told his troops. They have the firepower. They have the numbers. But we have something they don't understand. We have the refusal to quit. And that, soldiers, is worth more than all their weapons combined. Hannah raised her hand. Captain, how long can we keep this up? As long as it takes, Timon answered. They came to our planet thinking they'd won? Let's show them the difference between winning a battle and winning a war. Above them, the Krathian forces nervously patrolled an empty fortress, jumping at shadows, unable to sleep, wondering when the next soldier would disappear. The battle had been over for days, but for the humans who refused to yield, the real fight had only just begun. 2 weeks had passed since the fortress fell. Captain Yuna Jin crouched in the dense jungle, watching the Krathian supply convoy through her binoculars. She had been leading a reconnaissance unit in the Northern Territories when the battle ended. Command had ordered her to retreat and await further instructions. Those instructions never came. Instead, she had heard rumors. Strange stories about human soldiers who refused to surrender, who disappeared into tunnels and emerged at night to strike at the Krathians. She had thought they were just stories meant to keep spirits up. Then she intercepted a Krathian communication talking about ghost soldiers at Fortress Yamato. Captain, we're receiving a signal, her communication officer, Ensign Hyan Choi, said quietly. It's on an old emergency frequency. Someone's asking if any human forces are still active in the region. Yuna took the radio. This is Captain Jin, Northern Reconnaissance Unit. Who is this? Captain Jin, this is Corporal Minho Park from Fortress Yamato. Captain Timon Kong sends his regards and asks if you'd like to join a party. The Krathians think they own this planet. We're proving them wrong. Yuna felt hope surge through her. She had 120 soldiers with her, tired and low on supplies, but still combat-ready. What do you need from us? Everything, Minho answered. Troops, supplies, intelligence, and most importantly, more people who understand that surrender is optional. 3 days later, Yuna's unit made contact with Timon's forces in the tunnel networks. The meeting was cautious at first. Timon's soldiers looked rough, wearing mismatched armor and carrying captured Krathian weapons. But their eyes were sharp and alert. These were people who had learned to survive against impossible odds. You actually did it, Yuna said when she met Timon in the underground command post. Earth Command said the battle was over. The Krathians announced their victory. But you kept fighting anyway. We didn't keep fighting, Timon corrected with a slight smile. The battle ended, just like everyone said. We just started a new one immediately after. Yuna's unit brought valuable resources. They had food, medical supplies, and fresh troops who weren't exhausted from weeks of constant operations. More importantly, they brought information. The Krathians had conquered Bellum 7, but they were having trouble holding it. Other human cells were resisting in small ways across the planet. Some were hiding in the mountains. Others had fled to the ocean platforms. None were fighting as organized as Timon's group, but they were causing problems. The Krathians expected easy occupation, Yuna explained, showing maps on a portable screen. They thought humans would follow galactic warfare conventions. Lay down arms, accept defeat, wait for prisoner exchange. But humans across the planet are refusing to cooperate. Lieutenant Neri had set up a medical station in an old mining complex. With Yuna's supplies, she could finally treat the wounded properly. She worked on a soldier with an infected leg wound, carefully cleaning and bandaging it. We lost 12 soldiers in the first week, Nari told Yuna quietly. Not from combat, but from infected wounds and exhaustion. Your medical supplies arrived just in time. Private Yunji Song had proven invaluable in the past weeks. Before the war, she had been a survival expert, teaching people how to live off the land. Now she led teams that foraged in the jungle for food and water. The Krathians controlled the supply lines, but they couldn't control the entire planet's ecosystem. The jungle has everything we need, Yunji explained to Yuna's troops. Edible plants, clean water sources, natural medicines. The Krathians are importing their food from off-world. We're eating what's already here. That gives us an advantage they don't understand. With Yuna's reinforcements, Timon expanded operations. The force now numbered over 300 soldiers. They divided into smaller teams, each with a specific mission. Some teams continued the psychological warfare, making Krathian patrols disappear. Others sabotaged supply lines. A few specialized in gathering intelligence. Hyan, the communications specialist from Yuna's unit, proved to be a genius with alien technology. Where Minho had cracked Krathian communications, Hyan went further. He learned to fake Krathian identification codes, access their computer systems, and even alter their sensor data. I can make their sensors show whatever we want, Hyan explained to Timon. False troop movements, fake supply depots, ghost vehicles. They'll waste time and resources chasing shadows. Do it, Timon ordered. Make them see threats everywhere. Sergeant Sora continued her infiltration missions. With the captured Krathian armor and her knowledge of their culture, she could walk through their camps almost undetected. She learned that the Krathians were frustrated and confused. Their commanders were demanding results, but the troops on the ground couldn't explain what they were fighting against. One night, Sora overheard a conversation between two Krathian soldiers. They were sitting on guard duty, talking quietly. This planet was supposed to be secured, one said. The humans lost the battle. Why are they still fighting? Because they're crazy, the other replied. They don't understand that war has rules. When you lose, you surrender. That's how civilized species behave. Maybe they're not civilized, or maybe they just don't know how to quit. Sora reported this conversation to Timon. It confirmed what they had suspected. The Krathians viewed continued resistance as irrational behavior, almost like a mental illness. They couldn't comprehend that humans simply refused to accept their definition of defeat. Their confusion is our weapon, Tiemann said to his officers. Every day we keep fighting, we prove that their victory means nothing. A one battle doesn't matter if you can't enjoy the peace afterward. Jiho, the young sniper, had become more confident and skilled. He led a team of marksmen who struck at high-value targets. They never killed unless necessary, but they made it clear that Krathian officers were vulnerable. One commander found his helmet with a bullet hole through it sitting on his desk. The message was clear: we could have killed you, but we chose not to. Live with that fear. The Krathian Empire was starting to notice the problem. Commander Velthor received a visit from a higher-ranking general who came to inspect the occupation. The general expected to see a secure, peaceful occupation zone. Instead, he found nervous troops, empty fortresses, and supply convoys that required heavy escorts just to travel a few kilometers. This planet was reported as conquered 3 weeks ago, the general said coldly. Why do you still need active combat forces here? Velthor struggled to explain. The human military was defeated, General. But the humans themselves have not accepted this. They continue hostile operations despite having no chance of strategic victory. How many humans are we talking about? Our estimates suggest between 300 and 500 active resistance fighters. The general's eyes widened. You have 3,000 troops on this planet, Commander. You're telling me that 500 humans are preventing you from establishing order? These humans fight differently than any enemy we've encountered. They don't follow the conventions of warfare. They appear, strike, and vanish. They turn our own tactics against us. Excuses? The general interrupted. You will have 1 more week to secure this planet completely. If you fail, you will be removed from command and face charges of incompetence. After the general left, Velthor sat alone in his command center. He knew he couldn't secure the planet in a week. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They knew every tunnel, every hiding spot, every weakness in Krathian tactics, and they absolutely refused to quit. In the tunnels below, Tiemann received a report from Minho. The Krathians just brought in another 1,000 troops. They're planning a major sweep operation to flush us out. Let them try, Hannah said confidently. We know these tunnels better than they know their own ships. But Tiemann was thinking ahead. Eventually, they'll get frustrated enough to start destroying everything. Bombing the tunnels, burning the jungle, killing anything that moves. We need to change the game before they do. What are you thinking? Yuna asked. Tiemann pulled up a map of the planet. The Krathians have an orbital platform. That's where they coordinate their fleet and manage communications. If we could damage or destroy it, we'd cut off their tactical advantage. That's impossible, Yuna said. It's in space. We're on the ground. The platform needs supplies, Doyon said thoughtfully. They have cargo shuttles that go up and down every day. If we could hijack one, or sabotage their fuel depot, Hannah added. They have a large fuel storage facility near the industrial zone. If that exploded, the shuttles couldn't fly. The plan was risky and complicated, but it had potential. Tiemann divided his forces into 3 teams. One would attack the fuel depot as a diversion. Another would attempt to hijack a cargo shuttle. The third would provide support and evacuation if things went wrong. The operation took days to plan. Hyen worked on breaking into the shuttle's computer systems. Doyon studied the fuel depot's structure. Jiho's snipers prepared to provide cover fire. Everyone knew this was the most ambitious mission they had attempted. The night before the operation, Tiemann walked through the tunnel complex. His soldiers were checking equipment, writing letters to loved ones, or simply sitting quietly with their thoughts. 3 weeks ago, they had been a defeated army. Now they were a force that made an empire nervous. The fuel depot exploded with a force that shook the ground for kilometers. Sergeant Hannah watched from a safe distance as orange flames reached into the night sky. The Krathian guards had responded exactly as predicted, rushing toward the fire and leaving their other positions weakly defended. Depot is gone, she reported through the radio. That's their fuel supply for the next month. At the shuttle pad, Hyun's team moved quickly. The cargo shuttle sat on its landing platform, being loaded with supplies for the orbital station. With most guards responding to the explosion, only a skeleton crew remained. "We have 5 minutes before they realize what's happening," Hyun said as he connected his device to the shuttle systems. His fingers moved rapidly over the controls. "The security is tough, but I can break it." Doyeon and his engineers were already on board, checking the cargo hold. "This shuttle can carry 20 people plus supplies. We can make it work." Jiho's sniper team provided overwatch from nearby buildings. Through his scope, he saw Krathian reinforcements beginning to arrive. "You need to move faster." "Company is coming." "Almost there," Hyun muttered. The shuttle's systems were complex, designed to prevent exactly what he was trying to do. But he had studied captured Krathian technology for weeks. He understood their security protocols. "Got it. Starting engines now?" The shuttle's engines powered up with a deep hum. Krathian soldiers turned toward the sound, suddenly understanding what was happening. They opened fire, but Jiho's snipers responded. The Krathians took cover, giving the humans precious seconds. "Everyone on board now!" Doyeon shouted. The team scrambled into the shuttle as energy bolts hit the hull. The armor held, but barely. Hyun took the pilot's seat. He had never flown a Krathian shuttle before, but the controls were simpler than expected. "Hold on, this is going to be rough." The shuttle lifted off just as Krathian vehicles arrived. They fired at the escaping craft, but it was already climbing fast. Hyun pushed the engines to full power, heading straight up toward orbit. "They're launching interceptors," one of the soldiers reported, watching the sensor display. "I know," Hyun said calmly. "But we're broadcasting Krathian identification codes. Their systems think we're one of them. By the time they figure out the truth, we'll be at the platform." Commander Velther watched in disbelief as the stolen shuttle approached the orbital platform. His own shuttle, stolen by humans, was now heading toward his most secure facility. He gave orders to shoot it down, but the platform's automated defenses wouldn't fire on a craft transmitting friendly codes. "Override the system," he ordered. "Destroy that shuttle." But overriding automated defenses took time. The stolen shuttle was already docking with the platform before the Krathians could respond. Hyun piloted it into the cargo bay smoothly, as if he had done it 100 times before. "We're in," Doyeon reported. "Plant the charges and get out? We have maybe 3 minutes." The team moved through the platform with practiced efficiency. They weren't trying to destroy the entire station, just damage it enough to disrupt Krathian operations. Hannah had prepared small but powerful explosives designed to destroy specific systems, communications, sensors, and fuel storage. Alarms began sounding as Krathian security finally realized what was happening. The human team ran back toward the shuttle, planting the last charges as they went. Energy bolts flew past them, hitting walls and equipment. One soldier fell, shot in the leg. 2 others grabbed him and kept moving. 30 seconds to detonation," Hannah announced. "Move, move, move!" They threw themselves into the shuttle as the charges went off. The explosions were smaller than the fuel depot blast, but more precise. Critical systems throughout the platform failed. The shuttle's engines roared as Hyun launched them back toward the planet. Dodging debris and incoming fire. "We're not going to make it," someone said as interceptor fighters closed in. Then something unexpected happened. Human fighters appeared from nowhere, engaging the Krathian interceptors. These weren't local forces. These were fresh military craft with Earth markings. "This is Admiral Seok-on of the Earth Defense Fleet," a voice announced on the radio. "We've got you covered. Get to the surface and we'll handle things up here." Teeman, listening from the ground, felt shock and hope in equal measure. Earth had sent reinforcements. They hadn't abandoned Bellum 7 after all. The stolen shuttle limped back to the surface, escorted by human fighters. It crashed more than landed in the jungle, but everyone survived. Hannah's team emerged from the wreckage bruised but victorious within hours. Admiral Seok's fleet made contact with Teeman's forces. The admiral himself came down in a heavily armed transport, protected by dozens of fighters. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but he moved with authority. Captain Kong, the Admiral said when they met. Earth Command ordered you to surrender 3 weeks ago. You disobeyed a direct order. Yes, sir, Teeman replied. I'm prepared to face charges when this is over. Admiral Seok smiled slightly. When this is over? Captain, the battle was over a month ago. The Krathians won. Earth Command accepted that. With respect, sir, the Krathians didn't win anything. They just stopped counting while we kept fighting. The Admiral studied Teeman for a long moment. You know, Earth Command declared Bellum 7 a lost cause. We were supposed to negotiate for prisoner returns, not send a fleet. But then something interesting happened. The Krathians started requesting more troops. Then more. For a planet they had already conquered. We made it expensive for them, Teeman said. You did more than that. You made them look weak. Admiral Seok pulled up a star map on his portable device. The galaxy has been watching, Captain. Other species are paying attention. The Krathians announced a great victory, but they can't pacify 500 humans with 5,000 troops. That's not a victory. That's an embarrassment. Lieutenant Minji Wang stepped forward. She was part of the Admiral's fleet, a specialist in psychological warfare. I've been broadcasting your story across galactic channels, she explained. The species that follow warfare conventions are fascinated. Some think you're heroes. Others think you're crazy. But everyone is talking about how humans refuse to accept defeat even when logic says they should. Is that why you're here? Teeman asked. To capitalize on propaganda? I'm here because Earth Command finally realized what you knew all along, Admiral Seok said. Sometimes the battle doesn't matter. Sometimes it's what you do after the battle that changes everything. You lost Fortress Yamato, but you didn't lose the war. And that distinction forced Earth to reconsider their entire strategy. The Admiral's fleet brought supplies, fresh troops, and most importantly, hope. But they also brought a warning. The Krathian Empire was furious. They had committed enormous resources to Bellum 7, a planet that should have been an easy conquest. Now they were considering orbital bombardment to end the resistance permanently. They want to burn the planet from space, Admiral Seok explained. Kill everything, human and otherwise. They'd rather destroy Bellum 7 than admit they can't hold it. Can they do that legally? Yuna asked. Galactic law forbids it. But the Krathians are arguing that humans have violated warfare conventions by continuing to fight after defeat. They're claiming you're not legitimate soldiers, therefore normal protections don't apply. Teeman felt cold. Orbital bombardment would kill everyone on the planet. His soldiers, the civilians hiding in various locations, even the Krathian troops on the ground. We need to force them to back down. How? Nari asked. We're just a few hundred soldiers. A few hundred soldiers who have tied up their empire for a month, Minji pointed out. That's leverage. We need to use it. Commander Jian-Ru was the Admiral's top pilot. She had led the fighter group that saved Heon's team. Now she proposed a bold plan. The Krathians are preparing bombardment ships in high orbit. If we could hit them before they're ready, we might prevent the attack. That's a suicide mission, someone objected. Those ships are heavily defended. Maybe, Jian agreed. But we've been watching the humans on this planet do suicide missions for weeks. Seems to be working for them. The plan came together quickly. Jian's fighters would attack the bombardment ships directly, trying to disable them before they could fire. Meanwhile, Minji would broadcast everything across the galaxy. If the Krathians proceeded with orbital bombardment while the whole galaxy watched, they would face severe diplomatic consequences. It's risky, Admiral Seok admitted. But we're past the point of safe options. Captain Kang made sure of that when he refused to surrender. No, sir, Teeman corrected. I made sure we still had options when others thought we had none. There's a difference. The attack launched at dawn? Jian's fighters screamed into orbit, targeting the bombardment ship's weapon systems. The Krathian fleet responded with overwhelming force, but the human pilots were determined. They flew through defensive fire that should have destroyed them, driven by the knowledge that failure meant death for everyone below. On the ground, Timon's forces launched simultaneous attacks on every Krathian position. The message was clear: even facing orbital destruction, humans would not stop fighting. Minji's broadcasts went out to every corner of the galaxy. Other species watched as humans demonstrated something alien to most galactic civilizations. J. The Galactic Council Chamber was a massive space station where representatives from dozens of species met to discuss matters of peace and war. Today, every seat was filled. Ambassadors from across the galaxy had come to witness something unprecedented. A debate about whether a battle that had officially ended was actually over. The Krathian ambassador stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing with frustration. The Krathian Empire defeated human forces on Balam 7 according to all established protocols. We gave proper terms of surrender. We followed galactic warfare conventions. The humans ignored these conventions and continued hostile operations. We demand the Council declare the human resistance illegal. Earth's ambassador, an elderly woman named Ambassador Kim, stood calmly. The Krathian Empire announced victory. We accepted that announcement. The battle ended. What happened afterward was a new conflict, started by humans who chose to defend their planet against occupation. Is resistance to occupation illegal now? The debate raged for hours. Some species supported the Krathian position that warfare must follow rules or descend into chaos. Others argued that declaring victory doesn't mean automatic acceptance of defeat. The council was divided. On Balam 7, the fighting continued. Krathian forces had received orders to maintain their positions while diplomacy played out. But maintaining positions against an enemy that refused to acknowledge their presence was proving impossible. Captain Timon stood in the ruins of Fortress Yamato, now partially rebuilt by human forces. Admiral Siok's fleet had brought supplies and reinforcements. What started as 200 stubborn soldiers had grown to nearly 600. More humans were arriving every day, attracted by the story of resistance that refused to die. They're still debating in the council, Minho reported, listening to galactic broadcasts. The Krathians want sanctions against Earth for violating surrender terms. But public opinion across the galaxy is shifting in our favor. Lieutenant Minji had been monitoring social reactions from different species. It's fascinating, she explained to Timon. Species that follow strict military codes think we're dangerous and unpredictable, but species that have been conquered before are inspired. They're asking themselves why they accepted defeat when they could have kept fighting. We're changing how the galaxy thinks about war, Yuna observed. That might be more important than anything we've done with guns. Sergeant Hannah was less philosophical. She was preparing for the possibility that the Krathians would reject the ceasefire and resume the fighting. Hope for peace, prepare for war, she said while checking ammunition supplies. We've come this far by being ready for anything. 3 months after the battle officially ended, the Galactic Council reached a decision. They couldn't declare the human resistance illegal because humans had never formally surrendered. The Krathian victory announcement didn't constitute acceptance of defeat by Earth. The two sides were technically still in conflict. This sets a dangerous precedent, the Krathian ambassador argued. If the defeated side can simply refuse to acknowledge their loss, warfare becomes endless. Perhaps that's exactly the point, Ambassador Kim replied. Perhaps winners need to actually win, not just declare victory and expect compliance. The Council's ruling changed everything. Balam 7 was declared a contested zone, not conquered territory. The Krathian Empire had 3 choices: commit to a prolonged occupation against growing human resistance, negotiate a withdrawal, or escalate to total war. Commander Velther sat in his command center, reading the reports. His forces had suffered 15,000 casualties over 3 months. 15,000 soldiers lost while trying to hold a planet they had supposedly already conquered. The number was staggering and embarrassing. He had one final conversation with Captain Timon, arranged through diplomatic channels. They met in neutral territory, a cleared area between human and Krathian positions. Both came armed but under truce flags. You cost me my career, Velther said without preamble. The Empire will never give me another command. You came to my planet, Timon replied. What did you expect? A polite surrender? Yes, Velther said honestly. Every other species we've conquered has followed the protocols. Battle ends, defeated side surrenders, prisoners are exchanged, territory is transferred. That's how civilized warfare works. Maybe humans aren't civilized by your standards. Or maybe we just value our freedom more than your approval. Velther studied the human captain. He was younger than expected and clearly exhausted. His armor was mismatched, his weapons were captured Krathian equipment, and he commanded a force that by all logic should have been destroyed weeks ago. Yet here he stood, undefeated. I've been a soldier for 30 years, Velther said. I've fought in 20 campaigns. I've never encountered an enemy like humans. You should have lost. By every metric that matters, you did lose. But you simply refused to accept it. How do we fight that? You don't, Tiemann answered. That's what you're starting to understand. You can defeat our armies. You can destroy our fortresses. You can control our territory. But you can't make us stop fighting unless you kill every single one of us. And even then, you'll have to explain to the galaxy why you committed genocide against people who just wanted their planet back. The conversation ended there. Velther returned to his forces knowing that his empire had lost something it had never lost before, the psychological advantage. They could win every battle and still not win the war. Because humans had changed the definition of winning, 2 weeks later, the Krathian Empire announced its withdrawal from Bellum 7. The official statement claimed they were reallocating forces to more strategic locations. Everyone knew the truth. They were retreating from a planet defended by soldiers who refused to quit. The day the last Krathian transport left orbit, Tiemann stood on the rebuilt walls of Fortress Yamato with his surviving soldiers. They had started with 200 people. They had lost 89 in total. But they had held the line when everyone told them to quit. We won, Hana said, watching the Krathian ships disappear into the distance. No, Tiemann corrected. They left. That's different from winning. But it's enough. Earth Military Command didn't know how to handle what had happened. Captain Tiemann had disobeyed direct orders to surrender. By military law, he should face court-martial. But how do you punish someone whose disobedience saved a planet? The trial was held on Earth, broadcast across human space and beyond. Prosecutors argued that military discipline required following orders, even surrender orders. If soldiers could simply choose which orders to obey, the command structure would collapse. Tiemann's defense was simple. I was ordered to surrender to an enemy who hadn't truly defeated us. I was ordered to hand over my soldiers and my planet based on rules we never agreed to follow. I chose to defend Earth territory instead. If that's a crime, then I'm guilty. The military tribunal deliberated for 3 days. Their verdict shocked many, not guilty. The reasoning was complex, but it came down to one point. Surrender must be voluntary to be valid. Tiemann's forces had never surrendered. Therefore, they had never stopped being legitimate military forces defending Earth territory. This verdict changes military doctrine across human space, the lead judge announced. From this day forward, we acknowledge that soldiers may refuse surrender if they believe continued resistance is viable. This ruling creates what we're calling Combat Continuation Protocol, inspired by the actions on Bellum 7. The galaxy watched and learned. Other conquered species began asking questions. If humans could refuse to accept defeat, why couldn't they? Rebellions started on 3 occupied worlds within a month. The Krathian Empire found itself fighting multiple insurgencies, all inspired by the human example. We created a monster, one Krathian official said during a High Council meeting. We've shown the galaxy that conquest is meaningless if the conquered refuse to accept their status. 5 years passed. Fortress Yamato was rebuilt as both a military base and a memorial. Tourists came from across human space to see where 200 soldiers had decided that the battle ending didn't mean they had to stop fighting. Captain Tiemann, now Colonel Tiemann, stood at the memorial dedication ceremony. A stone wall listed the names of the 89 soldiers who had died in the months after the battle officially ended. Among them was Commander Jian Ru, who had rammed her fighter into the bombardment ship to save everyone below. These soldiers died after the battle was over. Teeman said to the gathered crowd, after our enemy declared victory. After our own command ordered us to surrender? They died because they believed that accepting defeat should be a choice, not an obligation. Young cadets from the military academy stood in formation, listening. They were learning about Bellum 7 as part of their training, learning that sometimes the greatest victories come not from winning battles, but from refusing to accept loss. Sergeant Hannah, now Captain Hannah, ran training programs teaching Bellum 7 method tactics. Thousands of soldiers went through her courses, learning guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, and most importantly, the mindset that kept fighting even when logic said to quit. Minho had become a specialist in alien technology and communication systems. His ability to hack Krathian networks had been studied and improved.